neurodivergent young adults who had a largely negative experience of their primary school years. Part of my role with Sefton PCF is to listen to the experiences of parent carers through our social media groups and coffee mornings and make sure that voice is heard by those commissioning and delivering services. The experiences expressed in the first part of this presentation were gathered by Listen for Change in St Helens, but we hear very similar from our parent carers in Sefton. The questions were devised by Leslie Firth with input from St Helens and Sefton PCF.
Hi, I'm Monica. I'm the other co-chair of Sefton PCF and I have a very similar role to Sue. I have been involved in the steering group since 2021. I have two neurodiverse young children, one who has complex health needs, but both my children had a good experience of primary school.
Hello, my name's Vanessa Uzai. I'm from the Parent Care Forum in Cheshire West and Chester. We work in a very similar way to Sefton. I've been in the Parent Care Forum since 2016. I have one son who is 14 years old. He has cerebral palsy and a learning disability and autism. He went to our local mainstream primary school and is now at a special school. He moved there in year 7.
You have the next slide. Right, our voice clips aren't working for some of us, so we'll just give you a few seconds to have a quick look at the clips, quotes. So when this question was put to the children,
turn the sound off.
Okay. So when this question was put to the children, only 3 of them, this was in St Helens, only 3 were able to respond. The parents of the other children said that their child either struggled to understand the concept of the question or couldn't put their answer into words. From the statements we do have, it's clear to see the constant worry and anxiety neurodivergent children face from the moment they wake up on a school day. Imagine starting the day with such an overwhelming sense of fear, knowing the day ahead is going to bring so many challenges and hurdles for you. That's why it's so important to listen to the children and to their parents to gain that knowledge and understanding of their struggles, to try and alleviate or reduce that worry if possible. So the following 5 questions have been answered by primary age children who either have a diagnosis or are on the neurodevelopmental or ADHD pathway. Next slide. So how would you describe your needs to a teacher? Many neurodivergent children find it hard to understand how they are different to others. They may not have the capacity to see that they have different needs to others, or they may assume the teacher would know, because if they know something, the others will know too. Neurodivergent individuals are often described as having difficulties in mentalising. That's the ability to understand and think about other people's thoughts, feelings and intentions. The I wouldn't response is interesting, as many neurodivergent children don't want to highlight their struggles or draw attention to themselves, and to school staff they appear fine by keeping everything internalised. Next slide. So it's gone too far. So what things at your school helped you? Most of these responses mention some sort of sensory input, which highlights the importance of implementing sensory diets suitable for the child, ensuring they have the sensory feedback that they need to regulate themselves. To an outsider, these sensory breaks, sensory pathways, sensory gadgets may seem pointless or even a distraction, but it's clear that they have a positive impact in helping the children. Recognising a child's sensory behaviours can also help you to understand them. I'll give an example of this. When my youngest was in primary school, he would struggle with low-level classroom noise. He would shout out that he couldn't concentrate as it was too noisy, but then he would hum to himself and disturb the class. His teacher complained to me about him making noises. When an occupational therapist went in to observe him, she said that his humming was his need to control his sound levels. She suggested using ear defenders. It was a simple solution that benefited not only my son, but the rest of his class too. Next slide. So behaviour charts were mentioned a few times with these comments. For many children, they offer a drive to achieve, but for neurodivergent children, they may add so much stress, worry and anxiety and a sense of failure. My eldest child would worry about appearing different to others. He tried so hard to hide his struggles. He worried that he would get into trouble at school, usually because he'd become so overwhelmed at suppressing his own nature, and then he exploded. Then he worried that he'd have to sit in the foyer, tears and snot dripping down his face in full view of staff and visitors. He would then ask me why he was so weird and would worry about how not to appear weird again tomorrow. Next slide. So did anything make it hard for you at school? You'll notice that expectations and the demands of workload are common amongst these answers. The biggest bubble shows constant worry and anxiety that the child faces constantly throughout the day, which means they're missing out on the fun and the social factors that school can bring. The school is just too much for our neurodivergent children. One of my sons would get into trouble for not reading the school reading books at home. He struggled with reading. He wasn't fluent until year 6. What school couldn't understand was that his younger brother was a fabulous reader who had overtaken his brother, 3 years older, on the reading scheme. This caused mayhem at home when it came to reading. Imagine getting your reading book only for your younger one. We spoke to school about it and they gave him babyish books to read that caused him embarrassment. We spoke again and they gave him books about football, but he had no interest in football. He hated getting into trouble for not reading the school reading book, but he hated the embarrassment and teasing more. So can you think of anything school could have done to make it easier and better for you? So the first clip there, the child is asking for the school to give them a place to be themselves without judgment. Imagine feeling like that every day, masking who you really are and trying to fit in. This is where it's important to educate the whole school and community on the acceptance of difference and to celebrate those differences. We need our school communities to have that knowledge and understanding of the struggle our neurodivergent children face for them to gain acceptance and inclusion. My youngest would always say they need to stop asking me questions. He would say, I can't answer them because there's too much going on in my head. I need time and space before I can tell them about what I need. He wanted school to use the same methods we used at home to help him calm, but his school either wouldn't or couldn't. We discovered a technique that helped my son to calm himself down. We overwhelmed his overwhelm. He would play, his go-to was Queen's song, Don't Stop Me Now. And we'd play this song as loud as possible. By the end of the song, he would be calmer. In meetings with my son's school, they would ask how these meltdowns were managed at home. We suggested they try using Don't Stop Me Now with him, but school said they couldn't give him access to equipment to play the song in school. So I offered an old iPod that we had, but they said they couldn't keep it due to insurance. After years of having these conversations, I was called into school one day as my son was in meltdown. He'd thrown tables and chairs around the class, and the other children were moved into another room. I went in and my year 5 boy was knelt down in the middle of the room with up 10 tables and books and pens all around him. I gave him his iPod, told him to find his song. He found it, put on his headphones. I lay on the floor next to him. Once the song finished, he took off the headphones and I asked him what he wanted to straighten up, whether it be the tables or the chairs. He was calm enough to help me put the furniture back and pick up the books and pens. All this happened with a teacher at the school watching us. This was something school could have done to make things easier for my son, or a variation of this, but unfortunately nothing changed. School still wouldn't use this or any similar technique, and they continued to phone me every time there was a problem until I put my foot down and told them I would come and see him until they excluded him, which was hard. Next slide.
These are about the 5 questions that were put to parent and carers of children to gain their voice and understanding. And when listening to these responses, you'll notice that our spoken parent voice has had a positive experience on their primary journey. And we feel that this was important to highlight as it shows what can be achieved with small changes and the positive impact this can have on children and their families. You'll see here that parents comment that their child is non-disruptive, but the rest of the response shows that this child is clearly struggling, which is impacting their ability to fit in. This highlights the importance of listening to and communicating with parents to gain that home life picture of that non-disruptive child and to be able to build those connections to support the child.
So one thing that struck me about this was the comment about the child being non-disruptive. Many children slip through the net because they are masked. They hide their difficulties and don't cause any issues. My youngest, as said before, became very disruptive in primary school. And it's not surprising he was assessed, diagnosed, and had a statement of educational need before his brothers were. They were rarely disruptive, so they waited longer for help, even though their needs were probably greater than their younger brothers.
Next slide, please. We can see here that small changes can make a big difference, and by implementing those small changes, we're not leaving a child to struggle and reach crisis point. An example of this is my son had a 5-minute pass for school, so he came in to school 5 minutes after everyone else, and he left 5 minutes after everyone else in an area of the school that was less busy. And another thing that his class done was that they introduced a sensory bag for every child. They didn't pinpoint him as needing that break, and the school commented that the attainment levels were much higher because they'd introduced a small sensory break every hour. Next slide, please. These responses highlight the importance of routine to our neurodivergent children and how change has such a massive impact on them. It's important to look ahead for any changes, such as over the Christmas period, sports day, school trips, change in teachers, to ensure that the support is put in place for the child. It's also important to communicate any changes of routine to parents so that they can prepare and support their child at home. It will also help them to understand any changes in a child's behaviour. Next slide, please. From this slide, we can see that some of the responses, we can see the impact of positive relationships between schools and parents and carers, and the positive impact we can have when we get it right. Something we always hear is that parents just want to be listened to, and I want to highlight the comment that says, "I was made to feel like a crazy mum, never being taken seriously." We hear this from many of our parent carers, and we would like schools to understand that admitting that your child is struggling is one of the hardest things to do as a parent. To get to the point where you feel like you need to approach school, the parent has most likely gone through all kinds of feeling of guilt, frustration and sadness. A positive to this is that in my children's primary school, often we were only told about the issue once the solution had been put in place. School weren't afraid to say, "We've tried this and we've tried this and none of this worked." However, this is what we're going to try now.
Thinking back to my own experience of primary school, I'd say it makes me sad. Sad that opportunities were missed, that my children didn't get the same joy out of school that many of their peers had. They didn't get the same opportunities as others did. A couple of years ago, my youngest son said to me that his primary school teachers must have been scared of him. I asked why he felt that, and he answered that why else would they allow a child to spend so much of his time outside of the classroom when in year 5 and 6?
Next slide, please. So what would you say your school did well? And its communication is key. And this is something which has been a common theme on school self-assessments and on the parent carer surveys. We know and understand that school time is stretched, but offering that reassurance to parents can make such a difference. Even when we get it wrong, communicate that, be honest and find a way forward together. The reassurance to parents will build strong foundations for those positive relationships. This is highlighted in one of the responses where the parent states the positive impact it had when they were finally listened to, proving that good practice works.
So the previous slides were presented on PINS Year 1 and represented the voice of St Helens and Sefton families. And we're now going to add to this with themes from PINS Year 1 parent survey and the parent engagement sessions that took place in Cheshire West and Chester that I was part of, and then some further additional comments from Sefton as well. So I worked with 4 schools in Cheshire West and Chester last year on the PINS project. So I attended 4 coffee mornings in each school. So that's a total of 16. Plus I've now had the first coffee mornings in the 3 schools that we're working with this year. Plus follow-up meetings with senior leaders, Senkos, head teachers. So the themes that we've kind of pulled together come from all of those discussions with both parents and the staff as well. Myself and my fellow volunteer Joe pulled them together, and we used them as well in our large parent care forum meeting that we hold 3 times a year, that we had a focus on the PINS project and on neurodiversity. So that was presented at that meeting last year as well. So the first point that we've got here is that the vast majority of the responses to the first questions on the parent survey about how welcome and included both children and parents felt in their school were very positive. So that's a good start. Most parents recognise the efforts made by their primary schools to be welcoming places for everyone. Second point there, what came out more in the discussions that we had face to face with parents when we met them is that they can often feel isolated and like perhaps they're the only ones in their school that are having these kind of difficulties, and that also kind of leads to them feeling like they don't have all the information that they need and feel like that they would appreciate some more advice and support, whether from external agencies or just within the school or peer-to-peer support. Point 3, of the parents we spoke to who had been through or were in the process of applying for an EHCP, there was agreement that it was not an easy process and it could be very overwhelming. And again, often parents reported struggling to get support with that process. And school staff agreed as well that this was a difficult process and they themselves often found it difficult and stressful. Point 4, those who had experienced long waits for diagnosis had not always been able to get the support they needed, and this had a negative impact on both children and parents. Point number 5, several parents reported feeling self-conscious at drop-off time and pick-up time. So when they were standing on the playground waiting for their child at the end of the day, There was the perceived judgment of others in relation to their child's behaviour or the amount of support that they were getting in school. Some felt that other parents avoided them. Others said they avoided other parents and often felt that others didn't understand what they were going through. So this had a negative impact on their feelings towards school. Finally, on that slide, several parents gave examples of times when behaviour and attendance policies had had a negative impact on their child, when neurodiversity had not been taken into account and difficult situations had been further aggravated. Okay, next slide, please. Is it just being a bit slow? I think it was doing that earlier. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the top one there, parents' concerns. So some parents spoke about feelings of not being listened to, and this having an impact on, again, on the amount of support that their child had in school or in delays to diagnosis as well. Another recurring theme was experiences of good and bad years, in inverted commas, so inconsistencies throughout their kind of school experience. When this came up, we tried to get parents to identify what made for a good or bad experience, and we discussed that, but parents felt that not all teachers within their schools had enough experience or training in neurodiversity, and others who had perhaps been teaching a long time sometimes had outdated views or approaches, or were overconfident in their approach and not always listening, willing to listen to the parents' views. Which point am I on now? Yeah, number 9 there was agreement across the board about needing more information and training on neurodiversity. So that one was, everybody agreed on that. Another topic that often came up was masking, and parents often felt that the teachers didn't understand that their children were masking in school. And that topic often led to discussions both in the meetings we had with parents and the meetings we had with Senkos and head teachers about the challenges that many families face with behaviour after school and other issues such as sleep, which, were all impacted by the fact that the child had been masking during the day at school. Another topic that was frequently discussed was the transition to high school. Several parents had been through this with older children and wanted to talk about how difficult it had been and the challenges they were still facing in high school. And then others had younger children but were already very worried about how their child would cope with transition. And then school leaders also spoke about this being a difficult time and there not always being enough support for neurodiverse pupils during transition. Okay, the last one there, many parents felt that more regular or better communication about their child would be a positive thing, especially those parents who reported that they didn't know what support was in place for their child, or they weren't sure about the interventions or reasonable adjustments that were in place.
It's refusing to do what I ask. I do apologise.
Well, I did that earlier today as well, but it actually did.
Hang on.
Oh, great. Thank you. So these were a list of quick wins that we put together following on from all of our discussions and things with the parents and the staff. So the top one there, this is a must. The information is just not getting to people. So We always start our sessions by asking who's heard of the Parent Carer Forum, and we'll ask if they know about the local offer, or if anybody's had any support from the SEND Information Advice and Support Service. And often faces are blank, and we get very few people who have heard of any of those things. Schools will tell us that, oh, there's a link on our website to the local offer, but often again parents don't know it's there, and they say, oh, I didn't know, and they just would really need a little bit more signposting. So that's a must. Yeah, the second point is kind of related to that. So it's sharing all of the information about the SEND Information Advice and Support Service and the local offer to all parents within school, not just parents who maybe come to you for a meeting and are asking specific questions about things, or you think might benefit from, you know, discussions that you've had with them. That information really does need to be shared regularly with parents. And number three, again, it's all about communication. So find out if your local Parent Care Forum has a newsletter. Most of us do, and we will send them out to schools and colleges, all kind of education settings in our area. And the idea is that they should be shared with all parents within each setting, not just parents that are maybe on your radar. And then there are other organisations that also have newsletters and regular updates and signposting. So find out who they are and get that information to your parents as well. Then the coffee mornings and drop-ins, I don't think, you know, we can underestimate how valuable they are. Can't say they're always well attended. Sometimes you get a lot of people, sometimes you get 2 or 3 people, but even when you just get 2 or 3 people, they're so valuable, because then those people meet someone else within their school to start with, and they've already got a friendly face who perhaps understands a bit of what they're going through. But then they speak to other parents, and we hear all the time from our parent members that they learn so much from other parents. So by getting parents into school together and meeting others, there's just so much benefit from that. And also getting staff and parents together to talk to each other and listen to each other, it's just so valuable. It just can't be underestimated, really. And then we've got the point about having a school rep. So this is something that we do in Cheshire West, and it's something that any school can encourage a parent to do. If you've got someone who's really keen and, you know, who would like to kind of carry this forward, encourage them to join your local Parent Care Forum and to act as like a representative within the school, so that they can become kind of, again, a friendly face that other parents can approach, but also somebody that staff can approach as well, and they can kind of facilitate future coffee mornings and make sure that information is getting to people. And then the last one on there, and this is something that some of our schools did last year, is use things like neurodiversity days, neurodiversity weeks, to kind of celebrate and increase awareness across the whole school, so that you're involving everyone, the pupils, the parents, the teachers, all the staff, and communicate about it. Let everybody know what you're doing and what learning is going on in school, and, you know, try and just raise that profile and bring it into the whole kind of culture and ethos of the school. And the positive benefits of that are immense. Okay, thank you. We've just got a few slides now where there are kind of comments that we've pulled from meetings and surveys, things that are positive, things that are negative, and then again some more kind of examples of outcomes or quick wins. So I think I'll let people just have a little read through some of those. They really support a lot of what we've already said. You know, topics such as communication and parents feeling listened to.
I think from this one, too, that we'd possibly like to highlight is that the school was full of love. And I think if you walk into school and you can feel the love, you're already halfway there. And the other one is that the parents reported that the head teacher is very inclusive and has driven SEND training forward in school. And that as a parent is something that we love to see, because we know that if your head teacher is invested, then the rest of your teachers will be invested. Next slide, please, Leslie.
Done.
Yeah, these were we have 2 slides of negative and 1 slide of positive, which was, yeah, to be expected. Yeah, I think most of them people have heard before. One we sort of broke our hearts a little bit was one of the parents said to us, "There's no fun at school anymore," and we understand why schools are mindful of family situation and money and things like that. But some of the suggestions the parents had were quite quick wins and weren't too expensive for the families. Should we have a look at the next one? I think we highlighted that earlier. Quiet children who were struggling but not being picked up. Yeah. More communication. Homeschool communication book not being used for the right purpose. And then
There's the one about transition as well, because obviously I spoke about transition to high school, but
yeah,
also that transition within primary from one class to another.
yeah. That was a parent whose child had 2 teachers in 1 week. So they had one teacher did Monday, Tuesday, and the other teacher did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but they were very different teaching styles. And the child was really finding it difficult to manage the changeover. Next slide. And these were some of the things the parents said they would like to see, some more social events, but specifically aimed at the SEND children, not all children.
Yeah, there's the comment down there about parents being interested in a mini parent care forum in their school to work with school on things like transitions. And that's something that we spoke about last year, having kind of topics that you can have at coffee mornings or meetings with parents, you know, pick a topic or let the parents kind of, you know, approach you with topic suggestions. And then you can save a lot of time as well as a Senko or a head teacher by talking to a group of parents about these things. And it can really, you know, relieve some of the anxiety that people are feeling.
Yeah, it's remembering that that a child's probably going to be at your school for 7 years, and the parents are probably going to be involved in your school for longer if there's more than one child. And it's remembering, they're invested in your school as well. So you need to use them. You need to listen to them. Next slide, please.
Any questions?